Hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. Let me find the right button here. You guys not seeing me? Where am I? Oh, there I am. I have been messing with my setup, and things work a little bit differently now than they used to. Hopefully better, but I'm still getting used to getting myself in here. Anyway, this is David Snowbeck. Welcome to the stream. We got a whole bunch of people on right away, which is awesome. Hello, Mr. Oswald Man, who was the first one on the stream. Hey, Ricardo. Hey, the buddy Adrian. Hey, Romario. Hey, No Skyer. Welcome, everyone. Whew. How you guys doing? How are your projects going and your game development adventures? Romario seems to be stuck at the top here. Let me redo that. Oh, and the Discord integration with the overlay should be working again. It was driving me mad that wasn't working. I was like, this morning, I was went on the Restream Discord, and I was like typing out a message to complain about how the syncing from Discord with their Discord bot to the stream wasn't working anymore. And I was like, well, I should just go test it before I hit send on this, and it's working again. So for folks who are on Discord, if you say things in the hashtag stream channel, it should appear as text on the overlay rather than the weird, like, curse words, symbols. Mr. Oswald Man says, more exam preparation for me than game development project. Oh, well, priorities. I actually didn't do very much game development this week either, because family stuff. I was super busy the last bunch of days doing family stuff and just couldn't squeeze it in if I also intended to sleep. Sleep? I mean, do you really need that? Is that really essential? Anyway, while I am waiting for you guys to say what's up with you, I will not just keep punching the microphone. What did I write down here? Oh, stuff that's been going on with me. I remember I was talking last stream at the beginning about the new Webrtc implementation, the new Webrtc native plugin implementation for Godot, and I was really excited about that. And that's now a thing. So last week, Fales had made a PR and got it going, and I was trying to test it, but I hadn't completely successfully tested it. And since then, I did manage to completely test it. I ported my Nakama Webrtc add-on to Godot 4, and was able to test Fales' PR, and then now, is it not here? Is it on Fales' fork? It might be on Fales' fork. But Fales made it an alpha release. Oh, here it is. It's in the main one. Of this new implementation of Webrtc. For the folks here who follow all the multiplayer stuff that we're doing, I use Webrtc for a lot of my multiplayer games. So this is awesome. The basically, the backstory is that this Webrtc native plugin used to use the Chrome implementation of Webrtc, and now it's switched to this new lib data channel, which is awesome because the Chrome implementation was a total mess. The SCTP implementation in there, I feel like I'm saying the word implementation way too many times, just trying to come up with an alternative, which is the protocol that data channels use in the Chrome implementation, is like kernel code from one of the BSD kernels ported to user space. It is impossible to read. It's like full of like 5,000 line functions that have like go-tos and are bouncing all over the place. It's impossible to understand. And then on top of that, there's like this really complicated C++ abstraction layer, and it's a mess. Oh, and it has like 1,000 dependencies. You have to have like all this crap set up just to compile it. Whereas libdatachannel is this nice, clean, simple implementation of data channels over Webrtc, which again is primarily SCTP under the hood. Hey, Phil Do, welcome to the stream. I'll stop chatting about Webrtc for a second. Well, let's get to some VR stuff. Hey, so last stream, you guys were trying to convince me that I should not make a separate UI for the desktop version of the game, that I should take the VR palette from the VR version and just show it in the desktop version. And you guys were totally right. If I had not done that on stream, this whole thing would have taken a totally different course. So thank you guys so much for trying to convince me of that, because it looks awesome now. And I'll show that in a moment. Before I do that, though, let me just give a quick project intro for anyone who might be here for the first time. Mr. Oddwald says, so in layman terms, ? I'm sorry. I may have gone a little too deep on my dive into WebRTC and all of that stuff. It's one of those things where, like, to say things simple, you have to do like a ton of preparation, you know? Like, to say it complex and meanderingly, I can just start talking. But if I want to like actually say it in a simple, understandable way, I'd need like, I don't know, 30 minutes or something to try and gather my thoughts. Welcome, Bronx Taco. Welcome to the stream. So I'm going to put on the headset. I'm going to show this game, give a 3-minute intro of what it is, and then we're going to switch over to looking at the stuff that I've done since the last stream and talking about what we're going to work on for the next 2 hours. So I'm excited. Let me mess around with headsets. All right, I'm back in here. Give me a moment to start casting from my headset to the browser window that you guys are seeing. This may or may not work. I might have to... Ooh, okay. This is working here. Is that working there? Sweet. Let me just make the video bigger. Where is my mouse? Oh my god. Trying to use a mouse through the headset's nose hole is not fun. Okay. So, basically, this is a VR voxel builder game, more of an art tool than a game. So it's not going to have like survival mechanics or procedural generation or any of that kind of thing. You got this palette here. I can draw some blocks. I can pick the color. Right now I just have this like palette of 16 colors. Eventually I'll put like a color picker or something in there so you can do any color. But color pickers are kind of a pain to work with in VR. This seemed like a good MVP kind of thing. We have 2 tools. This is the brush tool. This is the shape tool. Right now, the only shape it can do is cubes. So I'll just do a big cube like that. And the thing that makes this game unique, I don't know if it's truly unique, but the kind of idea that is special here is that you create the voxels that you build with out of smaller voxels. So I go into here, I get this small grid where I can start building a thing. Because I don't feel like thinking about it too hard, I'm going to do what I always do and make a little flower. Make a purple flower. Ah, one too many. And the idea is this is meant to be really easy to use. So you can rapidly switch between placing voxels and building voxels. On this small grid here too, we also get some different shapes. Let's switch back to green and then I'll show you. We have like this sort of half shape, so I can maybe do something a little bit more complex here. I have to hit this from below, I think, to get it to point the way I want it to. Oh, did I break this again? There should be a way to do this. Oh, there we go. Perfect, perfect. Yay! All right, so I made this little flower. Now I go back to the big grid. I now have that as an option on my palette, and I can place my little flower guy. Oop. And yeah, that's what it is so far. Eventually, I want to add multiplayer so that you can build things together and so that you can hang out in the spaces that you build with other people. I feel like social is one of the most compelling parts of VR. I may have mentioned this. My pa, who's in his 70s, never played any video games in his life, got really into VR. He's texted me about like Half-Life Alyx mods I should play. But we get together in VR and play like mini golf and bowling and all of these things because he lives in a different city. We're actually going to, Father's Day is on Sunday. We're going to get together for Father's Day in VR so that I can be there and my sister who lives out in Portland, Oregon, we can all hang out for Father's Day virtually. So yeah, that's the idea. I'm back in this view, and I started making a flower again. Why are you always making flowers, David? Just make something else. But the reason I'm back in here is because we have been working on getting a desktop version of the game to work. I do want to release a desktop version, but the primary reason that I want to work on a desktop version right now is that it'll allow us to start working on multiplayer. But we haven't, this interface where you're building the blocks, this doesn't yet work in desktop mode. So that's what we're going to try and get done today. If it goes super fast, we'll actually go back to VR and start improving the UI in VR itself. But before that, I want to get this thing here, this block builder thing, working in desktop mode. So let me get the VR headset back off, and I'll show you what I've been doing since last stream. Well, actually, let me catch up on chat before I start showing you guys too many things here. Nyanel, who I haven't seen yet, is always telling me, read the chat more, read the chat more. All right. Tangent, do you follow VR tech closely at all? I've seen any buzz around the supposedly imminent Valve announcement. I have not heard about a Valve thing. I do follow VR stuff. I read Upload VR and watch their weekly news show, but they haven't been talking about Valve stuff. There's a couple of podcasts I listen to. What is Voices in VR I listen to, but I haven't heard anything about a Valve. Speculation is there's an Index sequel codenamed Deckard. Oh yeah, so people have been talking about the Deckard thing. I haven't heard anything new since like the Steam Deck was announced though. If there's any new news, I don't know about it. I heard about Deckard right after the Steam Deck was announced. They'll potentially have a standalone mode. Feel like it's one of the very sparse announcements in the VR world that would give me a little jolt of assurance that my investment in VR might be worthwhile. By the way, your editor is looking real smooth. Thanks, Phil Do. Also, how are you rendering your voxels? Do you just add a mesh for each voxel? Yes, presently I'm just adding a mesh for each voxel because this is still existing in prototype land, and I'm trying to define exactly what I want a voxel to be, especially with like the different shaped voxels that we have on the smaller grid, like the slanty ones. If I choose to keep those, it's going to have a big effect on how I do meshing. So I'm kind of waiting to handle meshing once I've gotten some people to play it and we see how it works. So right now it's horribly inefficient. It's very easy to place enough voxels that it starts running at like 3 FPS. But performance is definitely something that I'll have to handle. Mr. Oswaldman says, agreed. I can see myself making a whole village in this. That would be awesome. All right. So last week, we were just starting to put the palette in into the desktop mode, and I now added this animation, which you can see, and I added this like little subtle movement when you're pointing at it. It sort of like leans a corner of the palette towards where you are pointing. And I love the way that feels. Maybe other people find it annoying. I'll have to see in playtesting, but I love it, guys. It feels like I'm holding the palette in my hand and I'm moving it around. And it also solves a problem that we were kind of having when we were doing this last week, where it was like, well, I can't quite see underneath this button. Like, how will people be able to tell that it's out and not in? It makes it, I don't know, everything feel more three-dimensional rather than having it static on the screen. And we were also battling the pixel art, getting some weird aliasing, which I've fixed in another way too. But if there is any aliasing, let me see if I can get into a position with some aliasing. Oh, it's hard now that I've made the texture so big. Oh, I can see a little bit. Okay, there's a little bit up here on the top of the wrench. It's like dipping weird. Like that would look totally weird if it was just static, but the fact that you like move around and the perspective on the pixel art changes makes like the weird distortions in the pixel art like somehow more acceptable. So I like that as a solution. I did, Phil Do, you were talking last time about Texel anti-aliasing, and I guess I would love to see your shader. I would love to see it. I found some other Texel anti-aliasing shaders on the internet through the Googles, but they all relied on functions that exist only in GLES 3, and I experimented with making like GLES2 versions of them and just couldn't get any of them working. So it would have been cool to solve it with some sort of cool shader. But what I ended up doing was this texture was originally, I think, 128 by 128 pixels, and I just blew it up to, I can't remember, like 2048 or something like that. Made it huge with, expanded it in the blocky way, not with like cubic interpolation or something like that, with the no interpolation method, and then turned on the filter, and now now there's way less aliasing on the pixel art. Yeah, that's a good question. How can you post it to me? Maybe in Discord, since we both hang out on the Wisconsin Game Dev Discord. Maybe you can find me there and send it that way. I'd be happy to get it in a DM or whatever too. Or if other people are interested, I don't know, are other people interested? Say something. You could post it over on my Discord. That would be fine too. I've got an XR channel on the Snowpet Games Discord. You could post like a link to a gist or something like that. But yeah, I'd be really curious to see how that works. You're doing your game in Vulkan, right? If I'm remembering correctly. But it's still GLSL, right? So I should be able to understand it. But anyway, yeah, this interface feels and looks better, and you can click all the buttons and do all of the things. So I made it be purple. Can bring it back up. I can switch to the other tool. And actually, the more I've been trying to build in this, I've been finding how annoying the using the ray tool is when you're doing a shape. But it's also just so hard to use the not ray tool as well. I don't know. Well, yeah, because like I didn't put that all the way down. I was intending to put that all the way down. So yeah, some of the way the UI works real well in VR, and then in desktop is maybe a little bit questionable. It's like, how am I going to fill that in? I need a crouch button or something. Yeah, Phil Deuce says Vulkan, but uses GLSL to Spear V transpiler. Cool. Yep, that's awesome. Hey, Boyandi, welcome to the stream. So yeah, like I was saying before, we have the palette, it's working, but if I go in here and do any of these things to create voxels on the small grid, I hit this, and I end up in a blank void. Oh, actually, it's not quite blank. That's really low, though. That shouldn't be down there. Can I place things on it? Is that working at all? It is not. Okay. Yeah, we got to get this working. And if we can get this working, we also need to do loading and saving in desktop, but that should be super easy. Those are really the last couple of things that we need to do to call the desktop version done enough for now. Not done enough to like release on Steam, but done enough to let me start working on the online multiplayer and kind of just put it down for a while. Since I'm not that interested in the desktop version, I'm really interested in the VR version. Oh, here we go. Actually, maybe I just had to hide the palette for it to start letting me place things. Anyway, what I'm thinking is, right now it's still using the sort of like WASD first-person shooter kind of controls, and I'm thinking we'll keep using WASD, but rather than moving the player around, it'll move this grid up and down and spin it around. Or no, I guess it'd be forward and backward and spin it around. How are we going to go up and down? Yeah, I guess let's first try with moving it closer and further from us and rotating it. And we'll try it and see if we need something to also let us move it up and down. I suppose we could assign some other buttons over here like Q and Z or something to raise it and lower it. We'll have to see. So, time to dive into code. I don't really remember how that small grid editor thing works, because it's been a while since I implemented that. Let's find the scene for it. Let me open up the VR Builder Manager scene. and see what we got. We have block editor. Okay, cool. So the block editor is just a hidden node within the builder manager. And how does the VR one do it? Whoa, there's like no code here. It must be handled in the parent class. So we have this builder manager class with two child classes, one for VR, one for desktop. That's one way we are attempting to address the code sharing between the VR and the desktop version. So let's go check out the code for the parent class. That's what this is. Okay, so the block editor, let's just jump around where we start using this variable, this block editor variable. So change builder target, I think that's what we call to switch between the two modes. Block editor, visible true false. Where do we position it? Okay, here we position it. Block editor, global transform gets set to the block origin, which is based on a distance from the camera. Is it possible we are using the wrong camera? Like, why is it so low? It should appear right in front of us. Okay, so block origin equals camera transform. Where's camera transform coming from? Camera transform, get viewport, get camera, global transform. Okay, so this should always be the right camera, I think. It gets the origin, it moves it a certain distance away from us. How does it know that that's from us, though? Okay, it knows it's from us because we're using the Z vector on the camera transforms matrix. Okay, so that would be inherently away from us, but it should be the same height as the camera. Or wait, no, here we go. We're changing the height to something totally arbitrary. Why are we doing that? Where's the origin on this thing? So this thing's origin is, I guess, behind it, because we're using the negative z-axis as the front of it. So the origin is at the bottom behind it. So I guess we don't want it to be exactly the camera height, because then we'd be staring right into it. We would want it to be somewhat below the camera height. Let's just try changing. Well, first, let's just try removing this thing here entirely. We won't mess with the height of the block editor. So we should get that thing where I was just saying it'd be pointing right into our faces. Let's just make sure it's doing that. Let's make sure it's doing the thing that I'm thinking it's doing. This is actually totally fine in desktop, at least. I guess it would be nice a tiny bit lower, a touch lower. What if we just do? What is the size of a block? I guess that would be a 1/4 meter. So what if we just drop it a 1/4 meter? Say minus equals 1/4 meter. And let's see. That's actually kind of low now. I mean, I guess it's fine because we're going to be doing a lot of pointing down. No, this is fine. This is fine. I like this. So I can build out this way. Oop. I can't get there though. Is that too close? Oh, interesting. I can actually be too close to place a block. That doesn't make any sense. We'll have to see what's going on with that. That may be a bug we need to fix. Yeah, and if we keep placing blocks this way, it'll start coming towards us, which is why we need the ability to move it back and forward. Okay, so I like putting it down a quarter meter. I do think we should test what that looks like in VR though, because we're editing code right now that's messing with both VR and the desktop. So I'm going to just try this really quick and see how it feels. Who is stuck at the bottom of the screen? I have to save you. I don't know who that was, but you are now saved. Oh, I didn't really look at the characters we got, guys. Phil Dew's got like a witch hat thing going. I'm looking pretty awesome. I got long hair and some kind of staff and a white beard. The buddy Adrian's wearing the Jester shirt. Oh, me and Bronx Taco have very similar beards. Both white bearded folks going on. Root Mario is a long-haired ogre with a shield. Mr. Oswald Man looking pretty normal. White hair with sort of military-looking garb, maybe an old general. No Skyer, just kind of looks like a dude. Dude wearing a sweater. Oh, it might have a goatee. Unconfirmed goatee. Wise Beard Club, yes, the best club. All right, I'm just going to quick put on the headset and take a look at what this change looks like in VR. I started talking without the headset on my head. Okay, let me get the casting going. Coming through, and I can see the mouse pointer, so I'm going to risk trying to use it. There we go. Resume, and oop, actually, I have to take us out of full screen because I have to send the new changes to the headset. So let's click that button. Building, signing, verifying, installing on device. All right. Come on. Nope, didn't work. Didn't take. This is some bug with the OpenXR plugin with Godot in that sometimes it just doesn't take. And I know it's my nose, I have an itch. How do I get in there? I know it's a issue with the OpenXR plugin because this didn't happen with the just like straight Oculus plugin, the OVR mobile plugin. But it does happen in the relatively new OpenXR plugin. Ooh. Okay, are we good now? All right, that was a little woozy inducing for a second. Let's make it so you guys can see it. Okay. Now all I want to do is turn this on and see where this appears. That's fine. That's fine. Let me test it out standing up. Also fine. Perfect. Ship it. I'm like riding my chair over the cord on my headset here. Okay, cool. So that works in VR. And what's next? We have it appearing in a nice place, and we need to do the controls. So I think the movement currently is handled in the desktop player scene. Let's open that up. Here's our player scene. Let's open up our player script. And we just have it grabbing some inputs and doing some stuff. So I think what we need to do is we need to add some sort of variable to disable movement on the player. So we will call it maybe player movement enabled. And we'll set it to true by default. And down here in the physics process, we'll see if not player movement enabled, return. So then we'll just disable this doing anything. The other option would be either having the player GD script do the movement for the other mode, but that'd be kind of weird because how does this node know anything about it? Or taking all this code and moving it up into the builder manager and having it do it there, but that's also a little bit unnatural because the player scene, as you can see, has like, I don't know, kind of a bunch of stuff going on. And it's much nicer to have its structure encapsulated together with its script. So I think this variable approach is the least messy. So we'll try that first. So we need our builder manager desktop. Where's that? Oh, just type it. Builder manager desktop. And so now we need to hook into the point where we are switching modes. So the builder manager emits a signal when that happens. So we could connect to that signal, or this is its parent class. So we could actually, like not subclass, override this method from the child class. Oh, sweet. Phil do pop the shader into the game dev Discord with a brief explanation. Sweet. I won't check it out on stream, but I will check it out later and see if there's any tasty nuggets of knowledge in there. So thanks so much for sharing that. Despite it being kind of weird, I feel like the cleanest thing we can do here is connect to our own signal. Connect to this signal on ourselves. So, where would we do that? I guess in our ready method? I don't recall either if the parent has a ready method or if we need to call it. So it does have a ready method. So in Godot 3, there's this weird thing where like some methods you don't have to call the parent class's method. It'll just get called automatically, which is so confusing because I don't remember the list of which methods do that automatically and which don't. So then I'll put it in ones where I don't need to, and then it's calling the parent method twice, or I'll forget to do it because I think, oh, that's one of the ones where I don't have to do it, right? I think ready is one of the ones where I don't have to do it, but we'll find out pretty quick because if it is one where we have to explicitly call the parent method, the new world will not get created, and we'll notice that right away. So we're going to do connect builder target changed, and the we'll make a new method like on desktop builder target changed. So that'll let us implement a new method down here. I wonder if it would make sense to, rather than connecting to our own signal, have like some like virtual method. GDScript doesn't really have virtual methods, but like a virtual method that this thing would call. Like we would do like on builder target changed. Maybe I'll do this so we don't have to do the weird thing of connecting to ourselves. We'll just make an empty implementation of it. On builder target changed. What was the target object? Forget the types. So builder target, that is a part of an enum. So we'll say int. And target object, is that a voxel object? Or voxel object instance? I think it's a voxel object instance. Okay, cool. And we'll just put a little note here, implement in child class. And we'll switch back over here, get rid of this ready function. And down here, we will implement that on builder target changed. We get the builder target, builder target, and the target object. Okay, so we want to say if builder target equals builder target world. We'll do world first. Then we want to enable the player's movement. Player movement enabled. And of course, I could do this by directly setting the value, but I'm going to do an if-else because we might want to do some more things. In fact, I suspect we will want to do some more things. Okay, so that will just disable the player movement when we switch modes. And then we need to implement some new movement, which, now we have player forward, backward, left, right. We'll need to put in here, put in our unhandled input method on the builder manager, where we're kind of breaking this up into two parts. If we're toggling the palette, we do that. If we're not toggling the palette, there's some things we only do if the palette is visible. I think these are things we want to do whether the palette's visible or not, right? We still want to be able to rotate and move around the object even if we have the palette up. So we'll put this in a new section kind of below here. We'll say if builder target equals builder target block, I guess it's the opposite of world, then we will implement these player controls. And I'm just going to copy and paste this little bit of code from the player so that I don't have to write all these if statements. Eep, what did I do? And I'm going to take a quick look at how we're doing the rotation and stuff in the VR mode, which is kind of interesting. Like the way you rotate it is you press the grip button and move left or right, and the way you zoom it is you go backward and forward. So we want to do those same kind of motions, but we want to do them with these button presses. So I'm going to kind of take that code and translate it to this. So where is that code? That would be in one of our function scenes. Function block editor. I'm following the pattern set by, what is it called? What is that add-on called? The Godot XR Tools add-on of making these like function scenes that you make be children of the controllers to implement controls in VR. It's a kind of cool pattern. I like it. So for my own, classes, my own scenes, when I want to add different controls for the controllers, I make these function scenes and then add them. This is one of my custom ones. Anyway, yeah, this is where we're doing it, I think. Let's try to understand some code I wrote a month ago. Get the vector pointing from the camera to the block editor. Calculate X and Y movement by projecting onto the camera vector. This is all stuff I don't think we need to do, because we're not manipulating something in 3D space. We're just going to end up with this movement delta. So the Y is up and down. That we don't have a control figured out for yet. The rotation vector, we are getting the cross product find a vector that is perpendicular to both vectors so we can get our rotation axis by finding the vector that is the cross product between up and the camera vector. Okay, so we get the rotation vector, then we project movement along that vector, and that gives us essentially just how much we have moved. And where are we actually doing something with that rotation length? Okay, here we go. We're rotating on the y-axis double pi by tau. So the distance that we move by tau. So I guess what would that amount to? That's 2, or that's for every meter that we move. Of course, I don't think I'm moving a whole meter ever. We are rotating a full circle per second. Wow, how would you even say that? That's 360 degrees per meter per second. All right, so I think our code can be much simpler for the desktop version. We basically, player left and right will lead to an amount of rotation on the y-axis. Do we want to do those together? So we'd have like a rotation length. Were we calling it rotation length in this one? Rotation length, which would basically be, oh no, it's not a length because we're not going to get an absolute value. We're just going to do how much per frame, right? So maybe we'll do this as an LSAF. Rotation direction, I guess you could think of this as a rotation direction, and then if it's left, we set the rotation direction to say I forget which way positive and negative would work in this situation. Well, we'll figure that out. We'll do one positive and one negative, and when we get it wrong, we'll switch it. So the rotation direction would be either like negative, we'll say pi, or positive pi. And defaulting to 0. And I guess we'll say if rotation direction does not equal 0, so we can avoid doing some rotating by 0, we will rotate the, what is this variable called? Block editor? Block editor will rotate block editor, rotate y by the rotation direction times the delta value. Okay, let's see what that gets us. I'm going to just comment out these lines for now. We'll just test this first thing. Delta isn't declared? Oh, okay, so this is in handle input. We probably don't want this in handle input. We probably want this in like process. Okay, so let's put this in process with a delta. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Does that seem sound? Let's run it. And now, yeah, it's rotating. Seems like a decent speed too. It's always funny when like just random numbers you make up turn out to work. Okay, so, and if I exit back out of here, then I'm back here, and I can walk around again. Or actually, I should be able to walk around even when the pallet's up. Yeah, I just can't turn because I don't have the mouse cursor locked. Okay, cool. So next, we need to move the block editor forward or backward, where forward and backward is defined by the direction the camera is pointing. So we're going to need to figure that out. We'll need to get the camera. We'll steal this code from here to do that. And we should probably have some limits on this. We shouldn't be able to move it to the other side of the camera or too far into the distance that we like lose track of it. My kids are like the best stress testers for these sort of things, because like if something can just go forever, they'll try to do it forever, and then we get to learn what the consequences are of that. But it's also made me quite aware of those sort of situations. Okay, so let's do this in a similar way, where we'll start with an amount. We'll say like zoom amount 0.0. I guess I could have done that here with the implied types. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I like clean up my code a lot while I'm writing it. It's probably very annoying to watch, but part of my personal process. Okay, so we are going to say if we're pressing forward, that will be, is that a positive movement or a negative movement? Or, okay, this isn't amount, this is a zoom direction, right? Direction. So if we are adding the camera's z vector to its position, that would be moving away from us, right? So that'd be zoom direction equals 1.0. Here, zoom direction would equal -1. And then once we get that, we'll take the camera, we'll say if zoom direction does not equal 0.0, and we'll take the camera, or we'll set the block editor's translation. We will add to the block editor's translation the camera. Okay, do we need to do this in global space or local space? I think global space. So we'll need to, okay, not translation, it'll be global transform origin. And we're going to add the camera's global transform basis z times the zoom direction times delta. Which means we'll probably need to put a speed value in here. And I guess I should do that this way too. Okay, let's define some constants, make this a little bit maintainable for ourselves. So we'll have const block editor rotation speed, which we are currently setting to pi. And then const block editor zoom speed, which we're going to arbitrarily set to how many meters per second? I guess 1. So we'll see what that looks like. So if zoom direction times block editor zoom speed, that means we are doing in this particular direction, and editor speed times delta turns that into a per second, so 1 meter per second. And then down here, we are going to change this from pi and negative pi to just be 1 or -1, and do the same thing. So times block editor rotation speed times delta, so that's now pi per second. Okay, let's give that a shot. Let's bring up the block editor, and okay. We do not want it to be relative to the exact z vector, because you'll see that since the camera's pointing a little bit down, it's moving it at an angle, which is not what we want. That's not what we want to happen. It gets even weirder if I unlock the mouse here, and I could have it move in all kinds of wacky directions by rotating the camera. I can move it up to the sun. Okay, so we need to only take part of this z vector, probably the z component, and then we will zero out the x and y component of this basis y vector. So let me know if I'm not making any sense with the way I'm talking about the math here. It's very simple math, but I can understand that looking at someone else's code and hearing someone say random words about it could be confusing. So if anyone's confused, I could draw some pictures or something. But camera, we will say direction. We'll call this variable. Will be vector 3. Okay, hang on. So want 0 on the x, 0 on the y, and then we need to take the global transform basis, just the z component of the z vector, and normalize it. I think that should give us a vector that isn't pointing down or left or right or anything, just that way. Or no, that won't work, will it? Hang on. I need to draw a picture for me. Let's go to Sketchpad, because the vector we want it would be on the x and z. Well, we just want to eliminate the y. Okay, I don't need to draw a picture. This will be camera direction will equal the camera global transform basis z, and then we need to zero out the y, and then we need to normalize it. Camera direction equals camera direction normalized. That'll work, Bronx Taco says. Let's see. Let's try this. So camera direction. Direction's maybe not the right word. Let's bike shed this variable name. Camera vector. Camera vector times zoom direction times speed times delta. Let's give this a try. Hey, there we go. It is moving forward and backward in a straight line, not going at a weird angle. Even if I'm looking up at the sky, it's still going the right way here. Monoxago says, I did some vector math stuff at work recently. I got the graphics programmers to help me. You know, so I am bad at math. I'm super bad at math, to be honest. This type of stuff right here, the math isn't the problem. It's the conceptualizing things in space. I really wish, and maybe one day I'll get a 3D printer and I will make this. I really wish that I had a bunch of arrows of different colors that I 3D printed, and some Play-Doh that I could stick them in, and I could set up in front of me the different axes that I need to understand what these things are in my head. Because with 2D, you can draw a picture. With 3D, you can sort of draw a picture, but not really, you know? So I really wish, oh, here we go. The rotation works nice even as this expands. Anyway, I wish I had some visual aids that could help me do this sort of thing. The not being able to click when it gets to a certain distance from me is weird. What is that about? It's it gets, well, actually, I don't think, can we expand it further? Okay, no, we went four of the grid blocks, so we can't expand it further. I just want to witness this bug one more time. So it comes to me, and then it stops. I should be able to place as far back as I can see, right? Or would that be weird usability? Maybe I thought that was bad usability and the bug is actually a feature? Anyway, this appears to be working, other than we need to set some limits. Like I was saying, my children, the first thing they would do is send this thing off to infinity and then never be able to get it back, right? They'd press this button for 5 minutes and they'd be like, how can I get it back? I'm like, well, you have to press the other button now for 5 minutes. I'm using the right hand rule shape with my hand to visualize stuff. Yeah, I do the same thing where it's like, I've got the y-axis and the z-axis and the x-axis. Okay, so let's set some limits, and then we need to figure out the raising and lowering on the y-axis, which we do need some buttons for. Do you guys have any ideas about what would be good buttons on the keyboard to do the up and down? So we're doing WASD for, zoom in, zoom out, rotate left, rotate right. What would be a natural set of buttons to go up and down? Or what if zoom was the mouse wheel instead of W and S? If zoom was the mouse wheel, W and S could be up and down. Does that sound sane? Would that be a control scheme that would make sense to use if you were playing this game? Because we're using... No, we can't use the mouse wheel because we have that other input mode. So there's two input modes. This is the ray input mode. So the ray hits something and it places it, but we have this other input mode, which is so hard to use in desktop. I've considered removing it a bunch of times, and if we did remove it, that would totally solve this problem. But it places an object in space, and then you use the mouse wheel to say how far away it should be. And it's impossible to use in desktop because it's like really hard to understand where exactly that is. The problem is there's some shapes, like how do you build them? Like how would I build this floating in the air if I didn't have this other input mode? And I don't know the answer to that question. But if we could use the mouse wheel, that would be a very natural zoom in and zoom out button. But anyway, when we're in the other mode, I'm using the word mode for too many things. When we're on the small grid, we can also engage this alternate mode for placing things, which is a little tricky. Super tricky to use here. It's even trickier than on the big grid. That's an odd movement to imagine. Maybe shift down, space up? Could be, because they're natural places for like your pinky and your thumb. Or shift and space end up being the rotation. Bruno, I cannot say your name. Estrazulas. Bruno Estrazulas. This is a VR game? Yes. So it is a VR game, and we've been jumping into VR a little bit. But we are working on a desktop mode for the VR game because it is going to be a multiplayer VR game, and it will be much easier to work on the VR or work on the online multiplayer if I can have one of those players or even both of those players during development be on the desktop, because I cannot wear two VR headsets at once, basically. I can enlist my children to help me test, but not for like the, sitting here for 2 hours like trying to solve a bug. I need to have some way to be in a multiplayer session with myself. So we're working on the desktop version at the moment. If we can solve some of the problems with this interface, though, we'll be done with the desktop version and can go, to just hacking on the VR version rather than being stuck in desktop land. Bronx Taco says maybe C down, space up, like in a shooter. It would be crouch and jump. C in space. feels a little bit less natural for my fingers, but I also don't play a lot of shooters, so maybe someone who does shooters would find that easier. Man, I wish I could use the mouse wheel. Can use the mouse wheel if we totally abandon this other mode of placing blocks. Bruno likes the idea of using the mouse scrolling to zoom in and out. Yeah, I like it too. It's just we're already using that. Hey, Nionel, Chesh, welcome to the stream. So what do you guys think? Do you think we should completely abandon this alternate mode? So like here we made the best voxel ever. Ray mode is easy to use in desktop, but there's just some things that you cannot easily make with only Ray mode. Like this, I placed it in the air. To do that with the Ray mode, I'd actually have to like do like you do in Minecraft. I'd have to build it up and then delete the things below it and then build it out, which isn't the worst in the world because like people are already used to that from Minecraft. How do you rotate blocks in desktop mode? Did I implement rotating blocks in desktop mode? I don't think I implemented it. No, wszystko w porządku? Jak u ciebie? What about a modifier? So WS is zoom, but shift WS is move up and down. That's interesting. That is interesting. So you're already using W and S with just one finger. So it's natural to press to do shift and W or S. Yeah. I hate that Minecraft building system. Yeah, it's not ideal. I kind of like the idea of shift, of using of course I'm pressing the caps lock key accidentally, as people always do. So which seems like the better default? Like what should happen when I'm not pressing shift? When I'm in here. So I'm probably already thinking W and S make me go forward and backward, because that's what the controls were just like a second ago. When I was over here, W and S made me go forward and backward, and then I come into here, and now it's going forward and backward. So that makes the most sense. Then Shift W to go up, Shift S to go down. Maybe use a modifier key for Ray mode. Hey, Boss MG Gaming! No worries to be late. Use a modifier key for Ray mode. So you're thinking that rather than just the scroll wheel operating Ray mode, we have to press something else with the scroll wheel in order to change the distance that the non-Ray mode is using. Wow, this is really weird. Like, when you're moving two directions at once. It went past me. Okay, so we do have to set those limits. And I think the idea that I like so far is Bronx Taco's idea of doing shift for the up and down movement. I think let's try that, and we'll see how it feels. And when I get this out to people, like to you guys, so I do want to get this out to players relatively soon. So you guys can test it out and let me know whether it's good or bad. Get your playtesting feedback. But yeah, let's try that. So first things first, before we move on to the up and down, let's just quickly do some limits here. So we need to say the block editor can't get too far away from the camera, which we can do after we move it. We'll get a distance. So we'll say var distance to block editor. Distance to camera is shorter to right, so that's what we'll do. Distance to camera. We'll do block editor global transform origin distance there's a distance method, like right on a vector 3, right? Is it just not wanting to autocomplete for me? Vector 3, distance 2. Yep, it's just called distance 2. That's just VS Code being persnickety here. So distance to the block editor global transform origin. That is a long line. And we'll say if distance to camera is, we'll say less than a quarter meter, then we will set it to exactly a quarter meter. And how would we do that? We would say the block editor global transform origin equals the camera vector. Hang on. It would be equal to the camera's. Hang on. This is actually kind of hard to do. Let me comment this out real quick. Or maybe I won't address this now because it's mathy. How much time do we have? Oh, we got an hour or so. So this is all good when we're just adding to it, because we know this won't mess with the y value, whereas setting equal will create a problem. Or it's a small problem. It's an easy problem to fix. I just have to set the y value again. So let's say block editor y equals the block editor global transform origin y. And then we can say this is equal to the camera global transform origin plus the camera vector times the 0.25, so long as after we do that, we reset the y back to its old value. Sign value doesn't have, okay, fine. We'll explicitly give it a type of float. Let's just make sure that this code works and is sane. So this should be preventing us from moving the block closer than a quarter meter to the camera. And oh, interestingly, it's closer than a quarter meter to the camera in 3D space. We may need to flatten okay, so what the problem that I'm imagining right now is if we move the block above us, the distance will be a quarter meter, but it's only going to prevent, you know, Z motion, and then that just becomes illogical. We need to make a vector between the camera position and the block editor and then flatten it and then get the length of that. Well, let's just see what if what I have works in the common case. Whoop, it does not. Okay. I'm not interested in this problem right now. Okay. I thought this was going to be easy and we could just throw it in there. I'm just going to say to do limit movement, limit zoom movement, limit zoom to a minimum and maximum value. Okay, and let's move on to this up and down problem. So clamping. Well, what value do we clamp exactly? Because we're in 3D space, and moving away and close to us could be in any direction, because we don't know which way we're pointing, right? We're doing all these things relative to this camera vector to do the movement away or towards the camera, but we don't end up with a single value to clamp, right? Like clamping within 2 points on each plane. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So we could set... A point is still... Can you clamp on like a vector 3? Or let's go to... Is that like global scope clamp? Nope. The other one. GDScript clamp. So we can clamp floats. We could clamp each component of the vector 3 individually. That would work. I don't know. Yeah, Bronxago, you came to the same conclusion as me. I guess you clamp each part of the vector individually. Yeah, I'm just not that interested in this part of the problem right now. Let's go back to the more interesting bit. This is more like a future thing that will need to happen, but let's not deal with it exactly now. So we need some new, or someone suggested maybe use a modifier key to enable ray mode, and only when it's enabled the scroll wheel is used to change block distance, otherwise scroll wheel will zoom. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So then you're like holding a button to go into this placement mode and then releasing it when you're done, kind of thing. Or like, I guess right now it is absolutely a mode where you just currently you press the middle mouse button to switch between ray mode and the other mode. So I mean, we could still do that. We could still press the middle mouse button to go into the mode, and then only when you're in the mode does the scroll wheel do that. So then how would you use both that like block placement mode in the block editor and zoom? I guess like every time you wanted to zoom, you'd have to disable. Yeah, that's why it would be better with a holding kind of thing, because it's easier to switch out of. You just lift up your finger. 9L says, have I just heard a bring? I didn't hear a bring. How are you hearing the brings and I'm not hearing the brings? Well, if someone just bringed me, thank you very much. I wish I had heard the sound. And if you identify yourself in the chat, I will thank you by name. I know there's got to be some way to like be informed of who does it, but I don't know. I usually just hear a sound. But thank you. Yeah, I'm just gonna put down this limit zoom thing, and we're gonna go with the shift to move the camera up and down. So the first thing to do that is we need to add some new things on the input map. We have player forward, backward, left, right. I guess we'll call these player up and player down, which actually would be useful in the other mode too. Like, it would be nice to be able to just raise and lower your character. In VR, of course, this will be like with the teleport, unless we need to have like a fly mode, which I think we do. I think we do need to have a fly mode. I'll figure out how to do that later. But yeah, I kind of like that we have a dedicated control of some kind for up and down. So Shift W for up and Shift S for down. And this one should be by far the easiest one to implement because we're just adding or subtracting from the Y value. We don't have to think about our orientation at all. So what order do we address these things here? Here we do them the Y movement first, and then the forward and backward stuff, I think, right? Yeah, so we'll do it the same way. We will put the up and down first. So this will be some kind of direction. Height direction? I don't know what to call that. Elevation direction? Elevation direction. And I'm going to borrow some of these ifs here. If player up, this will be elevation direction. If player down, we'll do a negative elevation. Elevation, why can't I spell elevation direction? And then, just like the others, we'll say if elevation direction does not equal 0, 0, then we will do block editor global transform origin, or actually it doesn't even need to be global, just be translation y plus equals the elevation direction times a new constant we're gonna have to create, which we will call editor elevation speed. Elevation. Wow, I'm not used to typing that word. Times delta. So this will be a meters per second value. I should probably write that down up here, that these are all in meters per second. Meters per second. Oh, and this is pi's per, or whatever value we give here per second. This is meters per second. And actually m per s is that kind of confusing too. We'll write meters. I'll just write it out, meters per second. Meters per second. And I don't even know how to describe this rotation. It's whatever value we give here per second. I guess radians per second, right? Pi radians. Okay, that makes sense. Radians per second. Because we're rotating by a pi per second. Okay. Let's try it. Where's my mouse? When I have all three screens hooked up, finding my mouse can sometimes be silly. All right, so, whoa! That's moving a little weird. Is it doing... What is happening? Is it doing both movements at the same time? Is it registering just the plain W at the same time as the other one? Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys are right. Hey, Smoloki, welcome to the stream. How are we going to deal with that? I mean, I guess we just do, we don't do the zooming if we did some elevation, right? Which makes sense, really, because we don't do elevation as much. So if you're doing elevation, you certainly don't want to zoom. So you could just do like that. So up, down, yep. Use guys were right. It's definitely, it feels a little weird to switch to the shift to do up and down, although I don't envision that I'll be doing up and down a lot. That's like a not very common thing. You know, it's been so long since I've played Minecraft on the PC. Lately I play it primarily on the Xbox with my kids. But it uses shift to go down and space to go up. I know someone already recommended that. But since this is a voxel thing, and everyone always associates voxel things with Minecraft, maybe it would make sense to do those controls. Let me just see what it is. So, come on. Did I somehow switch to not Dvorak keyboard? I must have. Okay, so Minecraft, flying controls PC. Unless someone can just verify it. Yeah, Bronx.co. It was your suggestion first. I mean, I guess I didn't. I liked the shift idea, but now that I'm feeling it, it feels weird. Flying can be toggled by double tapping the jump key, yeah, and then jump makes you go up, and I'm pretty sure jump is space. But what are the keys? Minecraft PC controls. I mean, I have it somewhere. I have the Java edition on this machine somewhere, I think, but I don't know where. Java edition, semi-configurable controls. Okay, just flying, man. Tell me how to fly. Fly. Okay, spacebar. Jump. When swimming keeps the player afloat. Double tap toggles fly. When fly mode is on, causes the player to gain altitude. Okay. And left shift, when in fly mode, causes the player to lose altitude. Yeah, I mean, this feels, at least like first touching the keyboard, this feels good with space and shift because my hands just naturally sit there. Let's try this. Let's see how this feels. And then I also can remove this weird if-else thing going on. And we can, on purpose if we want to, both elevate and zoom at the same time. Let's go into the input map. Player up, player down. We'll delete these. We'll add some new ones. Physical key. Up would be space. Down would be left shift. I hope that is just left shift. I guess we'll find out. Arc doesn't matter. It could be right shift. Who cares? Come on, come on. All right, so we go into this mode. Move forward, backward, and up and down. That feels way too fast all of a sudden. Now it's like off in the sky. We need limits on everything. We shouldn't be able to raise it, raise it up to the sky. I'll add a note to put a limit on it. And this would be a really easy one to limit, actually. We could just do it. And here we can use clamp. Or can we? Yes, we can. Lock, editor, translation, Y. And we don't want it to go below 0. Seems reasonable. Or above, what would be the height of a very tall person? Or maybe even just a normal-ish person. We could say 1.5 meters. And I think I might slow that down too. Whoop. We're not 1.5 meters. 1.5 meters. I think I was... Okay, 2.5 meters is where I think my mind was. That would be the height of an exceptionally tall person, I think. So that's down to 0. Which is maybe way too low. Who wants to do this? That's too low. And that's maybe too high. Okay, let's find a middle ground. So what if a child plays this game? I think my younger is about here. So I want her to still be able to play it. Maybe it does make sense to take it down to the floor for her, because you can build up to a meter high. And then This is just too high. That's just too high. Say 2 meters. That seems good. That seems good. So you can get under it and do some work underneath it. But it's not exceptionally high. This is weird. Like, why can't I place a block that's this close to my face? I feel like I should be able to. I need to put that bug on my to-do, because it's been annoying me this whole time. This, I guess, is in the desktop version only. On the small grid, unable to place blocks closer than a certain distance. Bug. What are folks saying? Yeah, so that Y clamp, I think you just want to do the exact same thing for X and Z. But X and Z are not consistent. Because we can be pointing in any direction, right? So when we're like let's say the axis, so this is Z, this is X, but we happen to be pointing this way, or let's say this way. The limit is going to be different. I don't know. Maybe there is still a way to do it though. If we like pre-multiply out what those points are and do each of the components individually, I guess that would work. It's just a little bit mind-bendy to get to the point where we're actually clamping. You could ask the player to set their height before playing. So in VR, we don't have to worry about this. Or we do still. But we can know the player's height roughly, because we know where their head is. So we could say, you can't place it higher than, I don't know, a certain amount above your head or below the ground. Mildly related to earlier, there is some exact match parameter you can pass to, is action pressed, or one of those, to distinguish between keys with or without modifiers. That is cool, Ricardo. I was not aware of that. Let me just take a look at that, because that is really great to know for the future. I've never encountered this problem before, so I haven't had to think about it, but it'd be great to have a solution. So input is action just pressed. We put an action, player backwards, whatever. Is there another argument? Exact match. True. So returns true, blah, 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 blah. If exact is false, it ignores the input modifiers for input event key and input event mouse button events and the direction for the input event joypad motion. Due to keyboard ghosting, is action just pressed may return false even if one of the action keys is pressed. Okay, I'm not sure what that's referring to, but yeah, that's cool. That exact match argument, I didn't even know it was there. I didn't even know there was a second argument. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think these limits are fine for now. Bronx Taco, X and Z aren't fixed. I understand your direction isn't fixed, but that little editing area in a fixed position, which you could then clamp 2 meters out. So I guess we could localize those positions and then unlocalize them, because we're dealing in global space for all of this stuff, and that works fine because we're using this camera vector. We're basing everything off this camera vector, which could be pointed in any direction, but so long as we're doing everything in terms of it, we can always move things closer or further away. But we could localize the space. That is a possibility. So how would we do that? We would need to multiply the position by the affine inverse of the block editor's global transform. So we'll say localized position would be the block editor's global transform origin times block editor global transform basis affine inverse, right? Or not the basis, the whole thing. Just is that a property of transform? I get always so confused about all the different types that are involved in matrices because they're like split between basis and origin. Okay, let's look at transform. This has an affine inverse. Okay, so I think we multiply by the whole thing, and we maybe multiply it in the opposite order, actually. I always get so confused about the order of matrix multiplication, but we can try this first. So this should put it in local space. And now here we can like clamp real simple. We can say localized, I mistyped this, localized position dot x. And we can say clamp between, we don't want it to move too far to the left or too far to the right. So this would be, I don't know, -1, or well, first I guess we have to put the value in. Localized position x, -1.0, +1.0, localized position y, clamp, localized position y, or not y, z, we're worried about z. Z, z, we never want to go negative. And then maybe we'll say 2. I don't know. 2 is not far enough, though. Or is it? Well, let's just try it. We'll try something. We'll see how it feels. And then we have to unlocalize it. So then we would say block editor global transform origin equals block editor global transform. No, this is going to get wrong because we don't want to take into account its current position. No, we want the parent. Okay, so this should be the affine inverse of the parent's global transform. Get parent block editor get parent global transform times localized position. And again, I'm not sure about the order of these multiplications, but let's try this. Okay, so then this should prevent me from moving past a certain distance, which it is totally not. Man. Prevent me from moving closer than a certain distance, which it is not. Yeah, I guess I don't need to limit the x on the x-axis at all because like we really there's like no way to actually move things on the x-axis. So maybe I could just get rid of this code. See what people are saying. Maybe I'm missing a move. The exact match is a relatively recent addition. Oh, cool. I wonder when it was added. I don't think Bronx Tiger. I don't think you're misunderstanding how movement is working. I think you're just picturing things in local space rather than global space. In local space, we absolutely should be able to do some clamping. And I'm trying here to convert from global space to local space and then back to global space. Actually, is there a local pre-existing local space? No, because it depends on where we're facing. I'm just going to get rid of this code for a second. And just tool around in here. Can I trick this into doing X movement by pointing in a weird way? Yes, I actually can. Okay, there might be bigger problems here as far as limits than I thought there were. We we also want to not be able to suddenly start making this thing go like all wackadoodle. Because now if I bring it here, I mean, I guess it's fine. Is it fine? Okay, because it's relative. Actually, hang on. We should not be moving this relative to the camera. We should be moving this relative to the vector between the camera and the block editor, right? We always want to be moving along this one specific line. Is that cube that you added always in the same position in local space? I think you want to add some margin out from the center of the block and then clamp the camera position to those values. Is the block editor in a fixed position globally? It is not. It appears wherever you happen to be standing. I've never backseat coded before. I think I'm hindering more than helping. I don't know about that, because then you could just limit the camera's distance from it. No, so the way that this works is we're in this mode, right? When we switch to this mode, it is making the rest of the world go away and placing this thing right in front of us. So we are facing whatever direction we were facing when we were still here. Like, we haven't moved. We're still in this position. So we could turn and face this way, and now when we edit it, we're facing in this other direction, and we still want the forward and backward to go in the same direction. But I think I found another bug in this, in that we're using the camera vector when we really don't want to use the camera vector. We want to use a vector defined by a vector pointing from the camera to the block editor. So let's change this. We'll still call it camera vector so we don't lose our minds. And you start with the thing that you are pointing at. So we're pointing at the block editor, global transform origin, and we're going to subtract the camera global transform origin. And then we zero out the y. Why are you complaining at me? The assigned value does not have a type. Okay, yes, you are correct. This is a vector 3. Set this to 0, then we normalize. And if we use this, we should not get out of sync. So that's good. There's got to be a way to think of this in 1D space, right? So if this is the distance between this vector. Okay, hang on. Before we normalize it, camera vector. Okay, so we'll leave camera vector unnormalized, and we'll make a new variable, camera direction. I'm now overloading the word direction here, but I don't know, I can't think of anything better, which will be the camera vector normalized. And we are moving to a zoom position, the current zoom. Okay, so we'll say zoom float equals the length of the camera vector. And then we are changing this zoom by adding the block editor zoom speed times delta. And then we turn it back into 3D space by doing camera okay, we don't origin plus equals. We don't want a plus. We want to just like set it, but not mess with the y. It equals vector 3. No, it equals We have to do this thing where we save the y, and I just don't like this. So this will be an original y, which is the block editor global transform origin.y. Okay, now we can just set it, and we'll restore the y afterwards, where we say its position is the camera's position, global transform origin, plus the camera vector times our zoom, because we're now defining zoom in 1D space. And then afterwards, we set the y back to its previous value. So global transform origin y goes back to original y. And then here, we'll add it in a second, but let's just make sure this works. We'll say clamp zoom. Let's try this. I have to add a thing. Okay, so now, whoa! Okay, well, I got that wrong. What am I doing wrong? So the camera vector is a vector pointing to the block from the camera. The zoom value is the length of that vector. And so then, oh, hang on. I didn't take zoom direction into account here. So this was originally block editor zoom speed, zoom direction, times block editor zoom speed times delta. Is that going to fix it? I'll try this and I will look at chat, because I'm sure someone is saying something hyper intelligent to chat right now. Okay. No, it still just sucks in. Yeah, you're right. I'm not using zoom direction. That turned out not to be the problem, though. So why does this not work? This seems like it should work. Oh, times camera vector. This shouldn't be camera vector. This should be camera direction. Did someone already say that? Oh, something else, but there we go. Woof. Okay, so that is now zooming us in and out. I think this should be more correct. So if I face this way, it should still zoom across the same vector. So we can't get it all wonky now. That's good. I can still spin around, and that's weird, but you know, whatever. You shouldn't do that. And now we can clamp the zoom. So we do not want it to come closer to us than something close. Maybe a quarter meter. And we don't want it to go further away than, let's say, 2 meters. So we'll have it go out, and it stopped. It stopped at 2 meters. Let's see if a quarter meter is too close. Quarter meter is too close. I don't want them to rotate all the way around the block editor. I want them to rotate the block editor to get things from different sides. I want the movement when we're in this mode to no longer be like traditional first person movement. Ooh, but I can't. Wait, do I have these reversed? So pressing W makes things go further away from me, and pressing S makes them go closer to me, which makes sense in a sort of way. But since I just switched from walking, I think like relativity-wise, pressing W should make it come closer, not the other way around. So let's reverse these. Oh, yeah, sorry. I should have explained the goal a little bit better, I think, then. Okay, this feels right as far as what forward is and what backwards is. And there's a limit of how far it can go up. And a limit for how far I can go down. That feels really far to me right now. How tall is my character? My player is here. My pivot is 1.77 meters off the ground. What is that in feet? Okay, I'm not used to using Brave search. Let's go to Google. Google would have just done that for me. 1.77 m in feet. That's 5.8 feet. So that's not that tall. 6 foot approximately. Well, yeah, in the desktop version, like the translation to meters probably isn't very meaningful, but since everything in the VR mode is done in like real actual meters, because that's how the VR headset will detect the space, I need to think in both of them in meters, but it just seems like really far away. But whatever, it's fine. It's fine. It can be down there. It's just like when I place a block. Whoa. Oh, because I'm hitting the wrong button. Okay. When I'm placing a block here, that doesn't seem that far away, right? But then when I am in here and I bring that thing all the way down, well, I guess that seems the same. Or no, I could go further. What is that? What is that dot down there? What is that? Can you guys see that? There's like a weird little dot over there. I wonder what that is. Anyway, I think we got it. I think we got it. Let's clean up this code a little bit. Let's look at the diff, make a commit, all the usual things. Small grid. We tested that change in height on both the VR and desktop modes. This code is all good. Yeah, this is a commit. This is a solid commit right here. So this would be implemented movement. I guess it's movement. We'll call it when editing blocks in desktop mode. Sweet. So what time is it? We have like 13 minutes. The only thing really remaining is the save and load and whatever menus, which we might be able to pull off because those are really, really simple. How are they done in VR? Where are they done in VR? I don't even know. Is it part of the main scene? Okay, yeah, so the main scene, the VR main scene, has these. So I guess we would want to put them in the desktop main scene then, right? So we'd add a canvas layer and go back to the VR main, and it has all this stuff. But what is this? What scene is this? File management. So we want to instance. Why are my keys not working? There we go. That was file management. I'm going to instance that here. We probably don't want it to be the whole thing. Let's make a control to go above it to be a parent. Name that maybe like UI. I don't know. File management. This we'll make this UI be a little bit bigger. Something like that. We will. Oh nope! I did not mean to full rect that thing. Unfull rect. Go back. Let's get rid of these anchors. I meant to center it. Set some sizes. Say 200, 200. All right, I'll undo my dumb mistake. And we will do center there. And we will hide it. Go to our main script. Let me just save this. Go to our main script. We have our... You know what, though? Like, that seems weird in main. It seems weird in main. Seems like it should be in Builder Manager. VR main. How is it opened in VR main? Show menu. Yeah, I feel like this should be in Builder because, like, you're only saving and loading things in when you're building, right? The idea here with the different managers, there's only one manager currently, the Builder Manager, but the idea that I had in my mind was you'd have a Builder Manager for when you're building, and like a Play Manager or like an Interaction Manager or something when you're just hanging out in the space, which would define like different game rules. So when you're in the builder mode, you have a palette in your hand. When you're in the interaction mode, you have actual hands and you can pick objects up. And when you're in the picking objects up mode, you are not going to have a file management screen. So that probably should be in the builder manager, which means we'll have to move it out of there from the VR mode as well. It can be added to the menu system when it is implemented for the desktop version. I'm not sure what you're referring to exactly there, Boss MB Gaming. I want to implement the saving and loading for the desktop version like right now. But yeah, I could do the refactoring. I could do the refactoring later. That's also a possibility. Refactor them both at the same time. I kind of want to do the refactoring now, though. By the way, maybe the zoom/rotation in the sub-voxel mode can be used while painting to make some patterns. Or another suggestion, add it to the palette. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Actually have the saving and loading on the palette. That would be interesting. The main thing is that you can't type on the palette. You need to have a virtual keyboard in VR. So it kind of needs to be on this plane floating over here where you can then like have your virtual keyboard to type. But you could activate saving and loading and then have a virtual keyboard come up. I don't know. I kind of like the way things are. I just think like this should not be in this scene. It should be in, you know, the next scene over. I don't know. How much time do we have? 7 minutes? We could just try to not refactor. Just do it the way it exists now, even though that's super weird. Or I could do the refactoring for just the desktop mode and then come back to the VR mode later. Maybe that's what I'll do. I think that's what I'll do. So we have Builder Manager here. And I am going to... merge from scene the stuff that I just added to main. Main, desktop. We're going to grab this canvas layer, all of its children, put it in here. And I'm going to go back over to desktop main. I'm going to delete these things. Then let's go over to here. And in the Builder Manager, we need to connect to some signals on that piece of editor, which I think we always want that, so I don't need to deal with this attach stuff. This attach stuff is like the main scene will always exist, and the different modes will attach to it and then detach to it, meaning they'll like add and remove their different pieces. Oh, this is the VR one anyway. I don't want to be in here. I'll be in desktop. So okay, func ready. We can connect to these signals in a moment. Let's do on ready var file management. File management. Did I not save this? Or wait, I did this on VR. Ah! I'm just like perpetually in the wrong scene or the wrong file here. Where's desktop manager? Builder manager desktop. Oh, we already have a canvas layer. That's kind of convenient. Let me merge from scene from the VR, no, the builder, VR, builder manager, VR, and now we're going to take all this stuff. And I can drag this up here, get rid of this one. And there it is. Let's go delete it from, again, the wrong place that I put it. Save. Save. Okay, file. Let's start over. File management. There we go. Okay. So we have this. I'm going to do the signal second. I want to get it showing and hiding in the right spot. We have this thing where we like free the mouse cursor, and I want to have this happen in that same spot. So I'll say file management visible equals true. And when do we do the opposite of that? Here I think is where we do the opposite of that. So here we would say file management visible equals false. And because we are now putting some more crap on the screen, this UI here, when it's hidden, it will not mess with the mouse, right? I think. When we're hiding UI and not the file management. Hang on. Yeah, okay, so we're hiding and showing the file management, so we do have to do a thing with the mouse. So UI should ignore mouse events. Okay, let's just give this a try. I hit escape, and an empty thing appears. What? And I can't get out of it. What did I do wrong here? Did I fail to save something? No. Well, maybe we won't pull this off in the last 2 minutes, but this was a really good stream, guys. It's surprising to me. Like, so first of all, it's like a lot harder to code when you have an audience. Like I'm performing and I make really dumb mistakes that I wouldn't make in normal life, but it is super valuable to have your guys' input, like especially last stream, switching to doing the palette this way. It is totally the right move. Like now that I can see the palette animating in and out and like messing with it, it just feels good. It feels right. And this time too, like your input on the controls and talking through some of the weirdo math with me it was super valuable. It's streaming programming. It's a very interesting experience, is what I will say. But I think that is probably all that we are going to accomplish on this stream. We got a lot of good stuff done. We're one thing away from being able to put the desktop version down and totally focus on the VR version. So I think next stream, assuming we do this again and I don't decide to do some other topic for the stream, I think we'll be digging back into VR. And like in my to-do, we've got some bugs to fix. There's some ideas for the UI I want to improve. But then, I mean, on my to-do is put it up on an itch.io page and get people to come try it, right? So we're getting to that point. I'm excited where this is going. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming to the stream. Bronx Taco, you did not make things worse. It was good talking through it because, like, to talk specifically to the clamping thing, forcing myself to say, like, well, how can we put this into one-dimensional space, which I was trying to do because of the clamping thing, I think that made the code better. So you did not make things worse, Bronx Taco. You made things better. Anyway, thanks again, everyone. Hope you have a good weekend. Take care, and talk to you later. Bye-bye.